Hey there, Chef Daddy 9000. Time for a video I wanted to make since I made the first couple. I'm so excited about it. So there'll be 3 videos like this. This is how I became a dad. Like I said, I have 3 kids. So I'll have how I became a dad, how I became a dad of 2, and how I became a dad of 3. They're all pretty fun stories with some interesting takeaways for a lot of people becoming parents and people who become parents and whatnot. All of them kind of have an underlying theme of how the plan is one thing and life turns out however it turns out. So a little bit of context. My wife and I got married at the end of 2015, and within a month, probably a couple weeks, we were sitting down and realized that while we talked about kids and what we thought of the future and all that on many occasions, we hadn't really, like we'd known each other for a while and we talked about a lot of things, but we hadn't really sat down and said, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what we should plan for the future, and things like that. We did that. That was when I found out that my wife didn't even know she wanted kids. And she said if she did, she wanted them in 10 years and 1, maybe 2. Well, the time frame would have put me in my early 40s when I had my kids. The rest of it was totally cool with me. I wanted children. I wanted 1. I didn't believe that single child stuff was inevitable or anything like that. And a lot of studies showed that there was a lot more familial satisfaction and satisfaction with life and marital satisfaction. You only have 1 child. That was the idea, that we would have a kid somewhere around 2025, 2026, have 1. If we had a second, the plan was to have them spaced out by 3 years about. Did not want more than 2. Where the plan is the plan. As you can see on this timeline I made, the top part is the actual events. The bottom part is the plan. And as you see, a lot more happened in that time. So my wife became a 1st grade teacher for 3 years. 3rd year, when she got made team lead and a literary specialist, we were in a nearly fatal car accident that gave both of us brain injuries and other injuries that took us most of a year, if not more, depending on what we're talking about, to heal from. I still have physical issues that I need to go see a chiropractor and a masseuse and God knows what else. My autistic sensitivities ever since that accident have been more acute in ways. And at times more difficult to deal with. So she left teaching at the end of that school year, and then we moved to live in a city with a lower cost of living and to look for greater opportunities, and also because most of our lives lived in Florida and we wanted to experience more seasons. I finished my bachelor's in psychology and sociology a few months later, and then at the end of 2019, my wife met my mother's mother, my only grandmother that was alive, and really the only one of the 2 grandmothers I had a real relationship with all my life. Right before we left, my grandmother looked at me and told me how proud of me she was. Not something she really talked about much. And then looked at my wife and asked her to have a baby. And that was really profound for us. And 2 months later, on Valentine's Day, as my cousin put it, Grandma left for a hot date with Grandpa. She hadn't seen him in 12 years. She missed him. Now, I didn't see it as my duty, or the fact that she asked and then passed very quickly definitely meant a lot to me. Then the world turned upside down because of something I won't really talk about, because none of us really want to talk about that anymore, for a few months. And we were stuck inside for a few months. And during that time is when child number 1 was conceived. And we were like, hey, we have no money, and it's expensive to move, and we only really have a lot of experience with Florida, who seems to be not having so many issues as other places have, so let's move back there. We got a trailer hitch put on our Fiat, and we put a trailer on the back of the car and drove from the Northeast to Florida, set up shop, renting a room for a few months. My wife got an ultrasound affirming the pregnancy, and we were given by that ultrasound and 2 other professionals due dates that were in the 2nd half of February. So we were planning on a baby the 2nd half of February. My mom was an OBGYN for 35 years, so I definitely know that babies sometimes come early. However, we made our plans for the second half of February. While we were sitting in Florida that summer, wondering what to do with ourselves with the world acting so weird, we decided that there were a lot of kids doing their learning and studying and everything from home in the next school year. So we felt that being an at-home tutor and teacher would be a really awesome role for us to fulfill. And so we started looking around, and there wasn't a lot of space for that here in Florida from what we could find, but we found a lot of people were into it in Denver, Colorado. We packed up again with a trailer on the back of our Fiat, rode on out west. We got to Denver, we found some parents and students, and we proceeded to teach and tutor in their homes while my wife became more and more pregnant. And I, for some reason, even with a college degree and great experience, because of how Colorado was operating at the time, had a really hard time finding any form of a job. Now, we had always planned that when my wife had the baby, I was going to transition and take care of the students, since I also had aspirations to be a teacher and had gone to school for it. Basically, during Christmas break, I looked at her and I said, "You're having a lot of troubles these days. You seem to be physically more involved with that pregnancy than we anticipated. So how about we go ahead and switch with the students when we come back from Christmas break?" We talked to the parents, and the parents were all cool with that. So that's what we planned to do. Spent a couple weeks hanging out, and then I started to gear up to basically go back, spend time with these students, and help them with their learning in the second half of the school year. Interestingly enough, 2 out of our 4 students got sick with the current issues of the time. Because of that, we had an extra week off. Now, that Monday that I was supposed to go meet these students in a full way, facilitate their learning better and tutor them and all this weekend, there was a big snowstorm. Now, every time a big snowstorm had rolled through the area over the last couple of months, my wife felt extra feelings. Then things got intense, some cramps, things of that sort of, Braxton Hicks contraction. We didn't think much of it. We just thought she was having an extra intense time while this snowstorm of 12 inches passed through over like a 36-hour period. Sunday night rolls around, the snow is starting to slow to a trickle. We're looking forward to me digging the car out of the snow the next morning and going off to engage the world. Little did we know that that was about to change. Around 2 in the morning, Kayla wakes me up and says she's really uncomfortable, and I say, "Hey, why don't you go get some tea, take a warm bath," those sorts of things. I said, "I'll go sleep on the couch so I can finish getting some rest before I have to go basically to work, deal with other people this morning. You take care of you and let me know if you need anything." So I go out to the couch and I go to sleep. She has a cup of tea and goes to take a bath, takes care of that all by herself to the point I don't even hear all that. 5 in the morning, I wake up to her screaming at me, "Jason, come quick. Jason, there's something happening. Jason, I don't know what's going on." So bound and determined to go prove to her that she's being some kind of hypochondriac or something at the moment, I was bound to prove that I was right and get some sleep. I walked into the bedroom and was just going to pull the covers back and be like, "Look, everything's normal. You're just in a lot of discomfort." And I pulled the covers back and saw the top of my son's head. I said, "Holy cow, that's the top of a baby's head, and I'm going to go figure out what to do." So I went and grabbed my phone, and my mom being an OB/GYN, she was the first person I tried to call. She did not have her phone on at 5:30 in the morning. Found out from my aunt later that she started turning her phone off when she went to bed at night a couple of years before that. And I was just like, So then I called 911, called for an ambulance. But right before I made that phone call, my wife let out a large grunt. And then, poof, was the top of my son's head. Oh, we had decided we weren't going to know the sex. So at this point, I didn't know he was my son. It was just the top of my baby's head. In all the years my mom did in OB/GYN, she did not, I forget the scientific term for this, but what's called a mermaid birth, where the water doesn't break and the sac is still fully intact when the baby comes out. I'm looking at my kid, wondering what's going on with its head and a sac and fluid, and kind of like an alien. I'm just like going, okay, I don't know about this. What's going on? So I'm on the phone with the operator, and they're like, "Get her clothes off, prop her up, do these things," and I'm taking care of everything, following the instructions. And about 2 minutes later, the operator says, "Sir, please go open your front door. The paramedics have arrived." Okay? And as I turn to go open the front door, she lets out another large grunt. And then what we have now referred to as the Shamu show happens. wounds, and there was blood and fluid and everything all over the room, and the bed, and me, and her. And so I walked to the front door and opened the door and said, "Hi guys, nice to see you." She's back there. And then at that point, 5 rather excited Denver paramedic firefighters who were about 6'5" and buff as heck all each marched through in their boots with snow on them through my living room with my dog wondering what the heck's going on, and walked into the bedroom and started to do their thing. One guy's taking paperwork and another guy's kind of assessing the room and the situation, while one guy gets down on his knees, looks at my wife and says, "Okay, ma'am, I'm going to need you to push now." And my wife responds, "You mean for real this time?" So she does what she has learned in her previous, to put in a real push. And in one real push, poof, out he comes. The paramedic looks at us and says, "It's a healthy boy. What's his name?" And I looked out the window and I saw the warm glow of the sun approaching the horizon. And I looked at him and said, "His name is Apollo." So that's how you have it. Multiple professionals told us the end of February, and that baby was born full term, healthy, full weight, 38 and a half weeks according to the doctors at the hospital we never meant to end up at the beginning of January. So about 4 to 6 weeks earlier than what we thought. We hadn't figured out a midwife. We hadn't figured out a lot of things. We didn't have any baby stuff. He slept in a box with blankets for 3 or 4 days until we could get some things we needed. We did the best with what we had at that time, and it was next to nothing. Now he's a beautiful 3.25-year-old young boy who's potty trained and loves going to the playground and the ocean, and his mom and his dad and his brother and his sister and his puppy. He's just a big ball of love and energy, and it's so awesome. And I'm so glad he made me a dad that day. I'm so glad that he helps me be a better person every day. I'm so glad I got to share this story with you. And whatever it is that you get out of it, becoming a dad has been one of the greatest things in my life. And I didn't have half a clue why or what it was going to do or what this was going to be like. Yet, it's such an adventure. And I'm so happy and filled with joy to be on all the time. And one day, if you watch this, buddy, I love you. I look forward to seeing all the amazing things you do and the way you maximize on your potential. I look forward to every rough moment and bright, shining star opportunity. And I enjoy every moment we have now. The playground, watching 19 Sesame Street, reading Curious George over and over and over again, reading Green Eggs and Ham for the 200th time. Maybe she was. My children are something that have made me a better person and have made me want to make the world a better place. And I hope that those parents out there and the people that want to be parents feel the same. Just keep focusing on love. Thank you. Thank you for letting me share this with you.